Welcome back, everybody. I know it's been a very, very long time, but thank you and welcome back to Chi-Town Sports Pod. Today's episode, we're going to be getting into a little bit of the Chicago Bulls rumors, kind of tangled around Zion Williamson, and we're going to see how all that could play out and what the rumors have been. But we'll get into that right after this. All right, so as you've heard from recent rumors, Zion has been kind of tied into the Chicago Bulls, and I think that could be very interesting when looking at how Zion's gameplay could kind of fit into the Chicago Bulls roster. You know, we have Josh Giddey, and having Josh Giddey, obviously he's been out for a little bit of time here. He definitely could have a huge impact on this roster if Zion came in, especially with the floor general that Josh Giddey is. I think Zion could bring some great spacing to this team. You know, Josh Giddey's averaging 19 points, 8 rebounds, and 9 assists, 46% from the field, and he's shooting his career high from beyond the arc at 38% from three. So he's been playing at MVP level. I wouldn't say too much of MVP caliber, but as a Bulls fan, we all know, some of this is a little... Watching Josh Giddey play, we've wanted a player like this for a very long time, especially with him along Modest Buzelis. But I feel like if the Bulls were to acquire Zion Williamson, Josh Giddey, Modest Buzelis, and Zion Williamson could be a very, very good young core that we could have. But Zion definitely has had some problems of staying on the court recently, especially throughout his whole career. Obviously the most games he played in 23-24 season was 70 games. But you look at this year, he's only played 25 games, and then his rookie season, he only played 24. So his rookie season was his lowest games amount played. But I feel like coming to the Chicago Bulls, he's been resting for quite a bit, and I feel like coming back and getting healthy for him is a huge step forward. But he definitely could fit on this roster. He's averaging 22 points a game this year, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 57% from the field. He's not shooting the ball incredibly well from beyond the arc. Last year he shot 23%, and his best season shooting beyond the arc was his rookie year, shooting 43%. So, I think there could be something here that the Bulls could get, especially with the things they could get back in this trade. I have the rumor here pulled up, and it says the Bulls could receive Zion Williamson and Karlo Matkovic, and the New Orleans Pelicans would get Zach Collins, Kobe White, Isaac Okoro, and a 2027 first-round pick. I'm not mad at that, but I don't know if 100% that's what I would want to give up for Zion, especially with how injury-prone he is. I do believe that we could kind of get him for a little less. He is Zion Williamson. He's a powerhouse forward. He's very strong, very athletic, and, he has a lot of upside, even with him going through all these injuries still. But I definitely think that we could get him for a lower cost. I don't think we have to give up 3 players in a first-round pick. I think the first-round pick will have to be included in there. But I definitely do think that we could probably keep Kobe White out of this trade, potentially, and kind of move him somewhere else. We're going to have a different video coming up here soon about Kobe White and his future with the Chicago Bulls. But we'll leave that for next time. But, yeah, so Zion Williamson and Karlo Matkovic, looking at Karlo Matkovic, he hasn't really gotten too many, opportunities on the Pelicans. He's played 28 games. He averages about 12 minutes a game. Last year, as a rookie, he averaged 18 minutes. His minutes have gone down. He's seen less court time, and he's only averaging 5 points a game, 3 rebounds, and barely an assist a game. He's shooting 63% from the field. The Bulls are looking for a young forward, or not forward, young power forward kind of center type situation or position player, and he could potentially fill that backup spot. Looking at Vooch and how he's played, or Jalen Smith, Jalen Smith has looked really good, but I think bringing in another young center could really have a big impact on this roster. He's 24 years old. I think that he could have a big impact coming off the bench, especially behind Vooch and with Jalen Smith coming off the bench as well. We'll see how Jalen Smith's future looks with the Chicago Bulls here. But, he's shooting 40% from 3, which is very big and huge for a center. And I think he could also have a huge impact coming to this roster. But the main look on it is really just Zion. The Bulls, they want Zion, obviously. But looking into it a little more, I found some more stuff about how that the Pelicans are shutting down trades now, and they really aren't looking to trade anything really big this season. So, looking at it, the potential for a Zion Williamson trade is very low, but it definitely could be in the works, or it's something that could happen possibly in the future. Maybe not this season, but something could potentially start together and come together for the Chicago Bulls to put in a package and send something to New Orleans for Zion. But looking at some other stuff, Zion and the Pelicans haven't really reached out or are kind of shutting down trades for any of their young core guys or big name players like Trey Murphy, obviously, and people along the lines like that. But we'll kind of see how this ties together and how things can play out for the Chicago Bulls. But I feel like if Zion Williamson was to get traded to the Chicago Bulls, him, Josh Giddey, and Matas Buzelis could look very, very strong as a big three, or you could say a big three, and I feel like they could look very scary on the court together. We have the Vooch problem of, defense, blah, 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 all that type of stuff. But, there's things that can be worked around that, things that can be moved, pieces that can be moved. And I think something special could definitely come out of this trade that could definitely propel the Chicago Bulls to be better and continue to grow as a young core, in which Artur Karnisovas has kind of built the Chicago Bulls up right now. We had the 5-0 start earlier this season to start the season, but everything kind of fell apart. Injuries happened, and we kind of haven't been playing with the momentum that we have. But I think that potentially in the future we could see a Zion trade to the Chicago Bulls. But that's going to be all for this one, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed, and that's going to be all. See you guys in the next episode.